Hello there and happy Wednesday. I am Julie Hirschberg. I'm a neurologic physical therapist, the owner and founder of Reactive Therapy and Wellness, which is a neurorehabilitation team. We're in the Los Angeles area and I'm excited to join you live. I come live every week just to share anything I've been reading or learning or doing or what our team has been doing here at Reactive. And I'm really inspired today by a family that I met just today, actually, where the daughter has a functional neurologic disorder. And we talked a lot about what it is and what it isn't, and what do we know about treatment. And one of the things that really stood out to me about this conversation was, that this person had really just had been referred to psychotherapy. This was anxiety, and we just need to deal with the anxiety. And that is just not supported by the evidence that FND is just anxiety, and just get your anxiety treated and you'll be better. We actually know that doesn't work, and we know more about the mechanism to understand that just treating anxiety doesn't get to the bottom of things. Now, let me tell you, treating anxiety can help. And let me tell you, I love going to therapy. I go to therapy every week myself. So does my family. I have anxiety. I think it's really important to take care of our mental health. So this is not an anti-psychotherapy. In fact, we're going to talk about why specific types of psychotherapy can be very beneficial in functional neurologic disorders. It's just really helpful to have something that is specific. And I think that goes for physical therapy, for occupational therapy, for psychotherapy. If you have a functional neurologic disorder, you should have therapy with a person that understands FND and have it specific to you and the underlying pieces that are contributing to your FND. So thank you. I just want to say thank you to the patients I get to meet, to the families I get to meet. I learned so much from you. And so this conversation I had today, really brought me back to this really wonderful article and this great figure that I'm going to bring back. I've brought it back several times. Let me give you the name of the article and I'll share it in our newsletter this week. If you're not already on our newsletter, if you're a therapist, join at reactiveeducation.com. If you're a patient, join at reactivept.com. This is one of my favorite articles of all time. It's called Functional Neurologic Disorder, New Subtypes and Shared Mechanism. Mark Hallet is the lead author, and it was just from a year ago. It was from April of 2022 in, what journal was this in here? Lancet Neurology. So really great journal, really great article. And it is in understanding, excuse me. I do this all the time. I love popcorn, if you didn't know that. And it's like my favorite little snack. And you know how kernels can get kind of stuck. And then, of course, that happens when I'm speaking and I could really use a sip of water. We're going to see if we can make it so I don't have to stop here. This article really gets down, and this figure gets down to the underlying mechanisms, the proposed mechanism of FND. There's a lot we don't know. New things are coming out all the time, but there is stuff that we do know. And what we do know is that it's not just anxiety. So if somebody is recommending treatment, like treat your anxiety, treat your depression, you'll get better, that's not enough. Yes, those things will help you as a human, they will, but they will not be enough for you to have changes in your functional neurologic disorder. And I should say, long-standing changes and understanding of your nervous system. And I think that is really key in FND treatment. So just treating anxiety, not enough. But let's talk about mechanism, and particularly I want to talk about this diagram and the predictive brain, because this really tells us why, if you just try to treat anxiety, you don't get down to the underlying issues and you're going to come up short, quite frankly. And there's research to show this too. I'll share a great article. So in this article by Hallet and colleagues, I just have to read a couple of quotes here where they talk about mechanisms piece. And this is what's in this diagram. So in FND, this is a quote from the article. Evidence points to an overweighting of the feed-forward message. So feed-forward, so we have a couple of mechanisms in our nervous system. We get feedback from our sensory systems, and then we have feed-forward. Our brain, this is why this is the predictive brain. Our brain is a highly, highly efficient machine that predicts what is going to occur. And there's a lot of cool little neuro like magic tricks to show you how this happens. But just go with me here. The brain is set up to make predictions. What has been found in functional neurologic disorders, and part of the mechanism, is that there seems to be an overweighting of this feed-forward or predictive message. And that feed-forward, and again, I'm going to quote from the article, is under the influence, and this is what you see here in the diagram, of previous expectations, attention, and emotion. One of the interesting articles in FND has looked at cognitive biases in people with functional neurologic disorders. And one small study found that patients in FND actually tended to have this kind of more attuned or quicker predictive brain is what I would say. They might tend to jump to conclusions based on very little evidence. They feed forward very, very fast. And I definitely see this in my own patients and the people I work with. Very quick brains. I sometimes have my own tendency to jump to conclusions and kind of like make quick predictions myself. So I understand that can occur. So the other thing, and again, I'm going to quote from the article, this is on the mechanisms that kind of go hand in hand with this diagram. Patients tend to favor their past expectation. This is not consciously. This is all happening in the predictive brain behind the scenes. Patients tend to favor their past expectation of an outcome over objective data regarding the future outcome. Isn't that fascinating? And there's a couple of reasons why. And again, this is supported by research. And they go on to say in the study, an electrophysiological experiment provided evidence for slow sensory information processing in patients with FND, suggesting that the person with FND might have reduced allocation to sensory information and processing objective body information. And again, is kind of locked in this feed-forward predictive brain. It's not that we don't want the predictive brain. The predictive brain is like, hello, what keeps us like alive and human. But if we are getting slow sensory information processing back, we're going to tend to not rely on that feedback, and we're going to rely instead on this predictive brain mechanism. And so that tells us one thing: we better look at the sensory system, right? We better assess that sensory information processing and the timing and all of those pieces. But just like I said, if all we did was address anxiety, we would actually not try to reprogram some of these predictive processes. And we would lose out a whole lot. I mean, in fact, I feel like you lose out on the purpose of therapy in FND if you're not addressing that predictive processing. So another piece, and I'm going to quote here, this is also, you can see the key pieces: emotion, attention. You can see this predictive processing going through this diagram. I'm going to quote from the article. from a mechanistic standpoint, it could be postulated that attention also plays a role in filtering the feedback signal during multimodal integration, including the emotional salience. I know that's a lot of big words. Abnormal increased attention to the symptom also explains why explicit or deliberate movements, so like when we do a neuro exam, like finger to nose and manual muscle tests, all of those things are harder to execute than automatic movements. This is why we've been talking about unlocking automatic movements all week. We're sharing ideas and videos on how to do this because this is so important in functional neurologic disorders. Again, attention, a piece of the mechanism. The predictive brain, kind of this neuroplasticity kind of gone awry in the predictive brain, part of the mechanism. Sensory information processing slowed, part of the mechanism. None of these are anxiety. Now, can emotion and anxiety modulate some of these processes? Absolutely. But if you only treat anxiety and not these other pieces, you can't really get down to the underlying issue. So this is my soapbox of it's not just anxiety. FND is not just anxiety, and a referral to only a psychotherapist is probably not enough. We know, and I'm going to quote again from this brilliant article, that when it comes to treatment, here, I'll stop sharing for a moment. When it comes to treatment, they recommend individualized treatment has gained support over a purely psychological approach. A common theme of the multidisciplinary approach is treatment that is based on the new mechanistic understanding of FND and not just a person's risk factors. Also, they say, and you know I'm a big fan of this, clinical experience also suggests that treating coexisting conditions, migraine, EDS, POTS, actually, he doesn't say EDS, POTS, I'm putting that in there, treating the other coexisting conditions, they're coexisting with FND, is also really important. Yes, let me share the article. Again, I'm getting the question for that, and I'll put it in our newsletter to Functional Neurologic Disorder, New Subtypes and Shared Mechanisms by Mark Hallet and colleagues from 2022. Thanks for the question there. And that this article that I'm like quoting the heck out of. So what does that mean for us as therapists? So if you're a therapist joining me, this is why I think it is essential that we as therapists, PTs, OTs, speech therapists, psychologists, trainers, anybody that's working with FND, really understand the neuroscience, the mechanistic pieces, because that mechanistic piece, the predictive brain, attention, all of those pieces directly influence what we do for treatment. And this neuroscience keeps changing. There's another comment here. Oh, so good. Somebody's comment, my OT and PT are working with me to understand how the four pieces I have blend together. This is where, thank you for saying that. This is where I think, first of all, you need a team, right? So therapists, build your team. We've been working on building our psychology team. We're hiring, by the way, if you're a psychologist, social worker, therapist that wants to join our team. But we've actually been collaborating with a lot of outside providers, and they're phenomenal. So therapists, build your network, and you can have this team together to help patients put together those puzzle pieces, because it's almost impossible to do that yourself. You need outside help to put together these pieces and to come at FND from many different angles. So I think this is why I hop on here every week to talk about the latest that I'm reading, that I'm learning in the neuroscience of this, because it's informing my treatment. It's informing our team's treatment. We talk about these things all of the time. And yeah, so they explained it like a Venn diagram. I love it. We use the pie chart. And yeah, Samantha's team is at Mass General. I know her team. They're phenomenal. I've gotten to work and teach with her team, and they're great. And they're doing a lot of the research in functional neurologic disorders. A lot of the research that I read every day, I follow them on Twitter, and they'll release something new like every single week. And I just eat it all up. I love reading, probably, as you know, and I really love neuroscience. So that's why I love FND, because that is really where we have this intersection of therapy and neuroscience and all of the pieces. And I think this is really important as therapists. As somebody is commenting here, I have FND and it lost me my housing. FND is very disabling. People lose housing. They lose their jobs. They lose the ability to go to school. That was, I talked with the mom today and, had to pull her daughter out of school. And, it is it's a very expensive disease on the healthcare system. That's some of the research as well that's come out. And this is why I think every single therapist should know and understand FND. So I'm going to get to the very last piece here of my conversation again with this mom today. Is when you have FND, you're often seeking out to find those providers who understand it, and you hit a lot of doors. She said she called multiple people, and she'd be like, "Yeah, so do you work with people with FND?" And they're like, "What?" And so she was just hung up on them, and I was like, "Good for you," but also that is so frustrating. I feel like people with FND should be able to call any physical therapy, occupational, like neuro rehab clinic, and those people know how to work with people with FND to help get them their lives back. So they're back in housing, that they're back to school, that they're back to working. That's what we see is 100% possible for people with FND. So I think this is so important. You probably know that because this is like my soapbox every week. I'm so passionate that every clinician know and understand FND. It's why last week we opened our doors to our Brain Bites community. We have a great group joining us. I'm so excited about that. We also, by the way, let me see if I have this. We're doing a course too. So we know not everybody wants to join a year-long mentorship with us. So we do a mini course. It's very reasonable, and we want this to be accessible to all therapists. So this is our FND MiniCourse. We've done it every year. It's our absolutely most popular course, but it's completely redone and updated because the neuroscience has been updated and changed so much. We update it every year. Chelsea Richardson, our FND program director, and I lead this course, and it is phenomenal. It's 2 hours long. It's live on June 8th, and then you can get it recorded. We do have limited spots in it, but we do an early bird that goes until May 18th. We just opened that up. So if you are a healthcare provider, please join us. If you are a patient, this is a course for clinicians, but if you're a patient, send this to your clinicians. I was thinking about this mom that I met today, and her daughter is in kind of traditional physical therapy, and I was like, oh, we should send them to this course. Like, how can we get her physical therapist to be in this course and to help? And I tell you this because there are things that we can do as therapists that actually make FND worse. I wish that wasn't the case, but it's absolutely the case that some of the traditional things that we do that bring a lot of attention to the body actually can make FND worse. And so some of our traditional therapy methods can be worsening symptoms. So that is why, therapists, I hope you'll join us in this course, but patients, send this course to your therapist. We want all therapists to really know and understand FND and be able to help patients get better. So this course is for physical therapists, it's for occupational therapists, for speech therapists, and let me show you just a little, like, who is this for? So, and also great for somebody who's just starting or wants an update, because we're bringing in all the neuroscience, like that Mark Hallet article, and we're going to talk about different presentations, and we're going to answer questions live, and we're going to talk through different presentations. Oh, Samantha's asking PCPs. Yes, send your PCP to this course. We're going to give a lot of the background on FND. It's not meant for physicians, but I will tell you, it's going to share with physicians exactly what they should recommend for somebody with FND when it comes to rehab, particularly integrated care with PT, OT, speech, psychology, all of those pieces. So that's a great question. Share it far and wide is what I would say. And here's what we're really covering. We're going to go through our whole pie chart. Yeah, chiropractors, absolutely. We have folks with that background even in our community. So that would be great. Break down, simplify FND with our framework. Our pie chart, this is how we run our practice, is on the pie chart. We're going to create plans that create life-changing outcomes and sustainable plans that help people make changes and sustain changes. I think that's another really important piece when we think about FND, an FND informed approach for PT, OT, and psychology is really not just in the present, but how can we help a person understand their brain, understand their nervous system, understand their sensory and autonomic system, so that they can't just get better in the moment, but they have all the tools to manage their nervous system for their entire life. So I think that is so important. So again, this is our new mini course. Again, it's live June 8th. This is great for PTs, OTs, but I know people ask, can I send a chiropractor? Can I send a PCP? Yes, you can. And it is live on June 8th, but we will record it and people can have access to the recording. And we have an early bird rate. It's only $177. You have to join before May 18th for that deal, and you can get it at reactiveeducation.com/minicourse. So again, I'm gonna just stop sharing here. Today we talked about how FND is not just anxiety, and how actually understanding the neuroscience, the mechanistic pieces of FND help point us to that is not just anxiety, and that we have to address the predictive feed-forward brain mechanisms that might be driving some of the symptoms. We have to address attention, but really take a full person approach in FND. And that's what we talk about in our course, exactly how to do it. We go through cases, we talk about flares, we talk about through some of the most complex symptoms and how we address them. We talk about treatment strategies, all of those pieces. So again, I'll send out the links to the articles this week in our newsletter. If you're a clinician, sign up at reactiveeducation.com, and if you're a patient, sign up at reactivept.com. We have 2 different newsletters, so I could speak directly to you, provide you all these resources. And thank you. Thanks so much for being here, for caring, for having curiosity about neurologic disorders like I do. And I will see you soon. Have a great night.